Hey guys, Mark here from Ratings.com, and today we'll be doing a brand lineup for the Audio-Technica ATH-M series. Now we've reviewed and tested all of the M series models currently available in 2018, and in this video we'll be doing a brief overview of the differences in the models of the series and what you get as you upgrade from the more budget M20, M30X to the mid-range M40 and M50X, all the way to the more premium M50x BT, M60, and M70X. Now, we haven't tested all the headphones from Audio-Technica since they have a pretty vast lineup with headsets for pretty much every use case. However, as a brand, their popularity is often associated with critical listening headphones, and more specifically, the ATH-M series lineup. So with that being said, let's start with the most budget of the series, the ATH-M20X. The M20X are the cheapest option of the M series, and it shows in their build quality. They have the same overall aesthetic as the more premium headphones of the lineup. However, they're a lot more plasticky with ear cups that feel less dense and less durable than the higher-end M40 and M50X. The headband is also a little bit different with a thinner metal frame for reinforcements and hollow yokes that will break much easier than the hinges of the M40X and above. They do not have a detachable cable, do not come with many extra accessories apart from the 1/4-inch adapter. They're decently comfortable, but the cups do not swivel as much as on the higher-end models, which makes them feel a bit tighter overall. They're also not the best sounding of the lineup, having a slightly recessed and inconsistent treble range that won't sound as clear or as detailed as on the higher-end models. Their mid-range is also a bit forward and their bass slightly overemphasized, but all things considered, they're an above-average sounding headphone, especially for the budget price. Moving up to the next model of the lineup, the ATH-M30X, and here there isn't much difference between the two headphones apart from the folding hinges that make the M30s a bit more portable. They also come with a pouch that make them easier to carry around in your bag, but for everything else, they're pretty much the same. Build quality is just as plasticky with the thin metal headband like the M20s, and the cable is not detachable. Accessory-wise, they come with a 1/4-inch adapter and a pouch, but that's pretty much it. The sound is also basically the same as the M20s, if not worse. As you can see in the frequency response, they have a bigger dip in the treble range that makes sibilances like the S and T sounds even less detailed. On the other hand, their bass is a bit more balanced and their mid-range is slightly less forward than the M20s, but it's not a significant difference overall, so they won't be worth the upgrade unless you really care about portability. Next up, the M40X. They are much closer to the more popular M50X than the other budget options of the lineup. They have a better design overall, with ear cups that have a much wider range of swivel and are slightly better padded for a more comfortable experience. The cable is also detachable, unlike the M20 and M30Xs, and they come with an additional 5-foot coiled cable that stretches up to 10 feet, which makes them a bit more suitable for studio use since you can slide around in your chair from desk to desk while keeping the cable length manageable. They also come with a pouch and have a much better sound overall than the M30X. They don't have that dip in the mid to high treble, so lead instruments have a bit more detail and clarity, but also since the mid-range is not as forward, they feel a bit better balanced on most tracks. Bass is a bit boomier than the M30s though, but not significantly, and some may prefer the extra bass. However, they're not quite as well built or as sturdy as the M50X, and you can feel it when you compare the two side by side. Overall, the performance of the M40s is not that far from the M50s, making them a decent alternative if you're on a tighter budget. As for the M50X, they are more, if not the most popular headphones from Audio-Technica, and are typically what you think of when the ATH-M series is mentioned. Compared to the lower-end model, they have a better, sturdier design that will last you much longer. They also fold to be more compact and easier to carry around in a bag, and come with more accessories. They have a pouch like the M40s and M30s, but come with 3 cables in total, including a coiled cable and a shorter 5-foot cable that is a bit easier to use with your phone, although it doesn't have an inline remote or mic like the rest of the wired lineup. They have the better sound overall and are one of the best sounding closed-back headphones that we've tested so far, even better than the M70X, which we'll talk about in a bit. They have a deep and powerful bass with a bit less boominess than the M40s. Their mid-range is even and well-balanced, so instruments and vocals don't sound too forward or too distant in the mix, and the treble range is also consistent and clear and detailed on most tracks. The M50s are the best choice in our opinion if you want an ATH-M series headset that strikes the perfect balance between price and sound, although they won't be as versatile as the wireless ATH-M50x BT. Being wireless, the M50x BT have a few advantages compared to the wired variant. They keep the same sturdy design and look of the M50s, but are a lot more mobile friendly since they come with a wireless control scheme and a non-OS specific cable with an inline remote and a mic. The wireless connectivity also gives them a much greater range than the wired variant, and they have a phenomenal 37.6-hour battery life that will last you days of continuous use, but takes up to 5 hours for a full charge, which is not as convenient. On the upside, you can still use them while they're charging, and they have passive playback, so even if the battery dies, you can still use them wired with the provided audio cable. They sound about as good as the M50s, although they have a bigger dip in the mid-range and a slightly more elevated bass that could overshadow some of the instruments and vocals. However, they're still one of the better sounding wireless headsets that we've tested, and would be a good choice if you're looking for a wireless option for critical listening. They do not come with a coiled cable like the M50 or M40X, but it's not a big deal since they have a standard 180 TRS jack, so you can use any regular aux cable, unlike the older models which have a twist-to-lock mechanism that could be limiting for some. Next up, the ATH-M60x. Here we have the biggest departure from the typical over-ear design of the lineup. The M60x are on-ears that deliver an almost as good experience as the M50x, but in a smaller package. They have a well-balanced sound that doesn't have as much bass as the M50s, but it's mostly even and balanced throughout. Their mid-range is a bit less consistent though, but it's still a good sound, especially for an on-ear design. Unfortunately, they do not fold like the other models, which would have made them even more portable, considering the more compact form factor. But on the upside, the on-ear design is lighter and a bit more breathable, so you should be able to wear them for longer, even if the on-ear fit won't be as comfortable for everyone. They also come with 3 cables in the box, similar to the M50s, 2/4-inch adapters, and a bigger pouch since they don't fold. If you like on-ears, then they're a decent choice, but for most, the M50s are the better option. Lastly, we have the ATH-M70x, which are the most premium option of the lineup that we've tested so far. They have a sleeker look and feel and are a bit more comfortable to wear for longer listening sessions. They're also a bit lighter and not as tight on the head, and the padding feels softer overall. Their sound focuses a bit more on the mid and treble ranges, which makes them sound a lot brighter than the previous models, especially since they also lack a little bit of bass. If you've ever tried the M50s before and found them to be too bass heavy, then you may prefer the sound profile of the M70X, but for most, they will sound a bit too sharp and not as exciting, especially on bass-heavy music genres. On the upside, they also come with 3 cables and a better, tough hard case that you can carry them in when traveling, but they don't fold into a more compact format like the M50s or M40X. Unfortunately, the overall performance and sound does not quite surpass the M50s, and since they're considerably more expensive, they won't be the best value for most listeners. So overall, if you don't want to spend much on an entry-level critical listening headphone, then get the M20X or the M30X. The M30s are a bit more portable overall than the M20s, but may not be worth the upgrade if you don't often carry your headphones in your bag. If you want the best performance to price ratio, then get the M50X. They're one of the best sounding closed-back headphones that we've measured, and they have a solid, comfortable design that will last you years. However, if you find them a bit pricey, then go for the slightly cheaper M40X instead. They have a similar performance to the M50s, but you will be sacrificing a bit of build quality and durability to save a few bucks, which might not be worth it for some. If you like the M50X, but often use them with your phone, then the wireless M50x BT will be a better option since they have a more mobile-friendly design, and they can also be used wired passively like the original M50X. However, they are a bit more expensive. If you prefer on-ears for critical listening, then the M60X are a good option, but for most, the M50s are the better choice. And lastly, you have the M70X if you want the most premium looking of the lineup. However, unless you really want the more instruments and vocals-focused sound, go with the M50X instead. They offer a better value. And that's pretty much it. You can check out all our measurements on our website. And if you like this video, subscribe to our channel or become a contributor. Thanks for watching. See you next time.